Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. My name is Joel, I'm one of your hosts. With me as always is your other well-rested host,
Brian. Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good, how are you?
Good. That is in reference to the fact that for the first time since June the 15th, 14th, we slept on a bed which was not a mattress, on a floor last night, which was really a pleasure. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Like just the simple pleasures of being above ground, off the ground when you wake up. Can't beat it.
Yeah, so one of my observations was it's so nice that you don't have to, when you're getting up, you don't have to like propel yourself from the absolute ground up. You can just like kind of sit sideways and then you're pretty much all the way, like more than halfway there to standing already.
It's not an acrobatic maneuver anymore. Yeah,
other things I really like, not having to fish my glasses out of like the debris next to my bed, and being able to put a cup of coffee down without thinking that I'm going to like put my hand in it and stuff like this. It's all great.
You put your hand in a lot of drinks while we're on the floor. So we are here, of course, to talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 7, episode 11. Showtime. Yep.
So this episode was first aired on January the 7th, 2003. This is the first episode of 2003, and the last time we're going to change year for Buffy. I don't know why I'm noting that, but we are. Yeah.
It's
also like halfway through the season, halfway through the final season of Buffy. How weird is that? It kind of feels like it hasn't kicked off as a season so far. So this episode was directed by... Oh, sorry. Do I do... Oh, no, I do direct.
Yeah, so get right into that old Buffy Ann summary there,
Brian. Yeah, okay. So this episode was directed by David Grossman. This is the only episode he directs. He was the assistant director on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of 1990, the live-action movie, which was terrifying. He directed the Grey's Anatomy episode, which was the private practice backdoor pilot, which I remember being truly atrocious. He directed 2 episodes of Cobra Kai. He did a lot of Pretty Little Liars, Charmed. He did 1 episode of Gilmore Girls, which is season 4, episode 11, and is the episode where Lane plays CBGB's, which is a famous punk venue in New York. It is, and he also directed 4 episodes of Angel.
So an eclectic career.
Yeah. The episode was written by David Fury, who last wrote Sleeper. And here is your Buffy Ann summary. Dead Potential Eve is impersonated by the First, which spreads despondency. Buffy allows the Harbingers and the Uber Vamp to chase her and the others from the house and then demonstrates how to kill it as an object lesson. She rescues Spike from the First Slayer. What's an object lesson?
An object lesson?
Yeah.
So I think, I'm getting in my head about it now because it's where you put the emphasis. So it's not about an object, but it's like an object lesson, like an emphatic lesson. Okay,
fair enough. So so for the Bronze Banner this week, Joel, we have a couple of we didn't really do it, so we ended up finishing the spooky month, having watched essentially no horror movies, and certainly no new horror movies. This is
unfair to us because we watched our usual amount of horror movies for the month.
No, we didn't. We watched basically no horror movies for the month.
We watched at least 2, and we watched Midnight Mass, and we
would usually watch, I would say, somewhere in the region of 8 horror movies a month on average.
For some people, it's only once a year they watch, Halloween Town and Scooby-Doo 2 or whatever, and that's their entire exposure to horror.
Yeah, and that's true, but yeah, so we rewatched Crawl, which is that the alligator movie.
Effie from Skins versus alligator during a storm in Florida. It's quite good.
Honestly great. And we also rewatched Drag Me to Hell, which so good. Fucking love it. But we didn't do anything particularly spooky for the season, except for fall asleep on the couch accidentally instead of going to a Halloween party. And we also we celebrated Joel's birthday, his 30th birthday, just a little bit.
Just a touch.
Had a couple of drinks with some friends. Anyway, so a couple of things we've been engaging with recently. We've recently finished season 2 of The Babysitters Club, which if you aren't watching it but you enjoy young women taking action and showing personality and being sweet, sincere and wonderful, then can't recommend it highly enough. Did you enjoy it, Joe? You know what? One of the things I saw written about it is that it does a real service as a teen or young teens and children's show by communicating that adults are also real people.
Yeah.
And that's actually an important thing to do as opposed to just like kind of mocking them, which like, you know, it's fun to mock and it's fun to portray adults as idiots when you're like in a kids show. I think it's a fun and a totally innocent thing to do, but it's also, I think this is even braver by being like, oh, here we're going to show you adults who are doing real things, having real problems. Alicia Silverstone's in it and is wonderful.
Yeah, and that as a child you have a relationship with your parents as people, and that power dynamic and that relational dynamic is obviously massively, you know, there's a massive differential when you're younger, but that eventually starts to equalize. And I think you know, introducing that to kids in kind of a well constructed way, and you know, it's a show that covers a lot of very special episodes and themes, and that's what it sets out to do. But I think it does it with a lot of charm and grace. You know, and I cried. Yeah,
I certainly cried. Yeah, there's an episode with a death of a family member, and it just like that broke me.
There's an episode with a very protective adoptive father, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's gonna get me right in the feels.
Yeah, that's lovely.
That's right.
So we really enjoyed that. We finished season 3 of What We Do in the Shadows, which continues to be just one of the best comedy shows ever. To be honest, like, so bizarre because season 1 was a little weak to start with and got very, very good. Specifically the Vampire Council episode, but it's all based on a really remarkably good Taika Waititi directed, I think. Oh, maybe he didn't direct it. I know he certainly starred in it.
Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi definitely wrote and directed. I'm almost certain.
Okay, yeah. the What We Do in
because
the Shadows,
they did a short film first of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So What We Do in the Shadows is the movie from 2014, I want to say, which I actually saw in the cinema. I fucking loved it. It's just a brilliant mockumentary movie, which if you haven't watched it, go watch it. The TV show like has no reason to be in any way good, and instead is incredible. Yeah,
it has queer content in it. It has you know, it's a lot very diverse cast, and it's just fucking funny. And it's like as a vampire property,
it's also stupid.
It is true. There's a stupidity to it as well.
I love
and like sudden gore as well, which is shocking. Yeah,
I love sudden gore.
So yeah, it was a strong. It has some great like catch the sword moments in it as well, you know, so to speak. So I think at the end of season 2 particularly, but yeah, have to recommend it. It's just fun to watch.
It's really good. Really enjoy it. But yeah, we finished that. We watched the first 2 episodes of Succession. Really good, obviously.
I have the same experience with Succession every time I watch it, where I'm incredibly stressed pushing it on. I'm having a great time when I'm there. Yeah, so it's not casual watching at all.
Yeah. Apparently Brian Cox can no longer wander around without being stopped in the street, and he's very upset about this. But I'm sure his many dollars will help that. Though apparently he's a good guy. He's very pro Scottish independence, which I always think is a really good sign. Like whenever I see on a personal life or political views part of the Wikipedia page of a celebrity, and it says they like added their name to that letter for the Guardian, being like, please don't succeed Scotland, and it's like, fuck off.
I saw that on the page of a couple of TERFs recently as well. I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1 relation. There was good voices, reasonable voices on both
Stephen
sides.
Fry, not a TERF, as far as we know.
No, I don't believe so.
I'd be very surprised if he was a TERF. I don't like, a beloved like mid-noughties to mid like kind of 2010s character who or
he's a real person,
but he's really like fallen out of favor in recent years. I think just people got a bit fed up of him, but by all accounts like a grand guy, and he signed that letter. But as far as I know, he's not a TERF. But who is a TERF and who did sign the letter is J.K. Rowling.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry, our cock's about to do some acrobatics here. From a high place.
Anyway, so you, Joe, have been engaged with some interesting content recently. You read a erotic lesbian space opera novel called Gigging in the Ninth.
So yeah, Gigging in the Ninth is now a new find by any means. It came in 2019, and I think it got a lot of critical acclaim.
Who's it written by?
At the time, Tamsin Muir. This is her first novel.
Oh, very cool.
And it was published by Tor. But it was immortalized for many reasons. I think the pull quote on the cover is it's along the lines of "Gothic lesbian sword fighting necromancer romancing space."
Oh wow! Is that a quote?
That's a blurb quote on the front.
But you've gotten that exactly, have you?
Yes, that's maybe not in the right order, but those are the words.
Wow!
And that's pretty accurate. Yeah, it's I had a great time listening to it. I listened to it as an audiobook, and it is kind of as described. It's about this kind of indentured swords woman for this necromantic house in a far future where it's science fantasy. So it's so far post science that we've come back around to magic again and all that kind of stuff. And Gideon is indentured to the House of the Ninth, which is a necromantic house, and they're called to the Emperor's first house to take part in a series of trials to see who will be the new great necromancer. And she's essentially has a love-hate kind of relationship with her the necromancer she's indentured to, Harrow, who is a woman, and it's just good fun. It's it's that Hunger Games format where there's districts and there's structure and all that kind of stuff, colorful characters. There's a lot of very accurate, from my understanding, sword play and very detailed sword play in it, because in terms of how the actual sword fighting would work is a big part of it. It's a very bombastic world, and it has an incredibly deft way of it much, again, similar to Buffy in some ways. It writes how people speak, or maybe in a slightly exaggerated way how they wish they did speak, without being too try-hardy. Yeah. There's parts of it that really just sound natural in this incredibly fantastical setting. And I listened to the official audiobook version, which is narrated by Moira Quirk, who is a voice actor, amongst other things. I believe she's Overwatch, but also she's voiced a lot of characters in Destiny as well. And the audiobook was an absolute banger. It was the best audiobook I've ever listened to. She fully brought every character and situation, every embarrassing noise to life, and I highly recommend it. It's a breezy read. It's the start of a series. I think there's 2 books out so far. I picked it up a couple of years ago and I never got around to it. I just had a great time listening to it.
I think you made my parents buy it for you.
I did, yeah. Your mom, for her Christmas book for me one year, did buy me a lesbian necromantic romance in space.
Yeah, well, hopefully she never hears this. So you also have been playing tons of Disco Elysium, which is a 2019 RPG game with maybe it was 2020.
2019
RPG game with lots of Lovecraftian detective, socialist imagery. Go on. Yeah,
so I'm hitting all the greatest hits of 2019 and 2020, but I think it originally came out for PC. It's very much like a classic CRPG, or a computer RPG game, where there's kind of top down, kind of like 2/3 angle, top down perspective, a lot of dialogue, etc. It's set in a world which is not our own, but it's heavily kind of French / Eastern European inspired. It's like melange of if the empires had evolved in a different way, and industrialization and communism had collapsed and grown in different ways, kind of this really run down kind of pulp world based on that. And it's absolutely lush visuals. Gideon and Disco Elysium kind of share a lot of DNA in the sense that they're very fully realized artful worlds, but also a classic structure underneath. So Gideon's very much like a locked room mystery, essentially a murder mystery kind of thing.
Cool.
To a large degree, and Disco Elysium, you wake up as a policeman who has drunk himself into such a stupor that he has forgotten who he is, and he starts from there, and you have to investigate a hanged man in this neighborhood and kind of unravel the world while you're doing it. And the version that I'm playing, which is the final cut, which came out for PlayStation recently, is now fully voice acted and expanded, and it's just, the music is beautiful, the voice acting is incredibly rich, and the writing is and the humor and all that is absolutely fantastic. So I really kind of have to recommend both of them, and I think they're actually both, Gideon and Disco Elysium, are reasonably accessible if that's not the kind of thing you usually go for. If you want to jump onto something which helps onboard you and it's kind of a comfortable place to start, I found them very inviting, and just you're in a really good story.
Yeah, I do love that.
I really I'm thinking about I've been thinking about both of them while I'm not with them, essentially.
That's a great sign. Also important to point out that Disco Elysium is available on Switch, which, I mean, for me, I know is a massive reason to go and play something. Anyway,
not that long either. I think Disco Elysium is meant to be about 20 to 25 hours, which for an RPG game is just not that long at all.
Yeah.
Speaking of murder mysteries in richly realized fantasy worlds, in this episode of Showtime, as efficiently spoiled by the Buffy Ann summary, we have the potentials introduced kind of in more full force, kind of gathering in the house, and we have this first instance of them being essentially infiltrated by the first, and I can't believe her name's gone right in my head. The
Annabelle?
Is it Annabelle who dies?
Yeah, Annabelle dies.
Annabelle. So we have this kind of sleepover vibe in the house, but Annabelle is this southern dissident, essentially, kind of sowing discord and fear within the young girls, and then the kind of the growing conflict where more girls are coming, and as it stands, they've no way to kill the uber vamp, or as Giles says with appropriate inflection, Turkong.
Yeah, we get it. Like we I think we have 4 additional potentials in this episode. What I found very notable, I think this episode like begins the like shift from the POV character being Buffy or Scooby to being a lot of the time the potentials and the fear of the potentials around what's happening and stuff. I find that a very odd kind of feeling. So you have Molly, who we had in previous episode. You have Kennedy, who obviously is one of the main potentials. We have as well Rona, who's introduced in the opening scene, who is the notably black potential, given the very low percentage of black characters in the show. But I actually really like Rona. I think she's quite cool. Also, interestingly, she's played by Indigo, an actress called Indigo Mononymic. But she was also Vanita in Weeds, who is one of the women who sells her weed, basically. But and I was like, oh my god, I had never realized that, and that makes total fucking sense, because I watched fucking all of Weeds for some reason. But we also have Felicia Day in this episode.
Like notable like geek culture actor Felicia Day.
Yeah, whenever I look at Felicia Day's Wikipedia page, I'm always like, oh, I should really know this person, because she's supposed to be so like, I don't know, supposed to be so cool, and all like every geek boy of all time is like, I'm in love with Felicia Day. She hasn't really done much.
Well, she did like, was 3 or 4 seasons of this like WoW LARPing based thing.
Exactly.
The League, and she was a main character or a recurring character in Supernatural for several seasons.
Exactly.
Like these are major things, Brian. More than you've done on television. So
she was also in Dr. Horrible Sing-Along blog, which is maybe the worst thing that's ever happened. And without a doubt, in my opinion, the worst thing that Joss Whedon's ever done, except for Age of Ultron, actually. They're both pretty bad.
As a creator.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, as a creator. Jesus Christ. I really fucking hate Dr. Horrible Sing-Along blog. I think it's genuinely atrociously bad.
I think it was one of the first things. It was definitely the first thing where I was like, maybe what he makes is not inherently always good quality.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Felicia Day's in this as Violet or Vivian Vi, I think she's called.
Yeah,
but
Violet,
I'm
I think.
I'm not sure if it's
I think
long
it's
for
Violet. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of cool. There's also another as to yet unnamed potential who she wears the silly t-shirt, but I can't remember her name at this point.
She looks very like early 2000s.
Yeah, she has the
emo,
she has the side part, the side fringe and all this stuff. But yeah, no, the dynamics between them are pretty cool. I do like how Andrew becomes one of the potentials essentially as time goes on. And yeah, this episode is all about action and interaction.
Just a point of correction, it's not Annabelle, it's Eve.
Oh, Eve. Sorry, Annabelle was last episode.
Yeah,
you're right.
And we should also clarify and take the correction that Molly has an incredibly mock Cockney accent and in no way resembles any of the dialects of the north of England.
I think you said she sounded like she was a Scouser.
I'm just throwing out.
Do you know what a Scouser sounds like?
Yeah, I do. No, I do. I'm just throwing out words basically.
Yeah, you do sound sometimes.
I heard, this complete random aside, I heard on a terrible program last night that there's a dish from kind of North Europe and Scandinavia, various variations called labskaus. And my dad always used to make it as well, because I don't know if I always assumed it was a German dish. Maybe my dad kind of like traveled to a lot of places in Northern Europe, so maybe just got it from there. But it's basically like meats and potatoes and all that kind of stuff, and kind of a stewy broth, etc. Yeah. But anyway, labskaus. But I saw a cooking program where someone claimed that sailors who came to the port in Liverpool brought this with them and it evolved into a dish called scouse, and that's where the term scouser comes from. Now I have no idea if that's true, but I just thought it was interesting since you mentioned scouser.
Well, okay. So some of the actual stuff in the episode, there's real action focus in the episode. The kind of the second half of the episode is entirely the kind of infiltration of the Summers house by the Bringers and the Turkon, and then Buffy, and then the potentials leading the Turkon to the construction site that Xander's working on, and eventually Buffy's taking down of the Turkon. It's quite effective.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we have it's quite a convincing, like they're really focusing on making the threat in this episode and making you have to believe that the threat of the first and what's happening is there so that it can be in the background for future episodes to a certain degree. And I think that it's definitely spooky the way that they realize, they find the girl and realize that Eve has been the first all along.
Yeah, that is scary.
And then where they're like, we have to show the girls that they are, you know, safe with Buffy and that these things can be killed. Although this is absolutely the start of me in this episode being like, you've been here a couple of days, it's someone else's house, mind your manners. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just an element of them being like, who are you? Like, nothing's happened yet to a large degree, and they're like, who are you, Buffy? You can't protect us. What are we going to do? Where's the plan? Even that Xander's like, around now is when you should be thinking of something to do. I was like, she is trying. Yeah. I don't know, I'm just like, everyone's a very inconsiderate house guest in this season, I think.
I do find it like bizarre how we've now seen like 2 episodes in a row of Buffy doing the like motivational leader thing, and like it just happens so often in this season to the point that like Andrew's taking the piss out of it. It's like, what were you thinking? You know, why is this like why do you flatten out Buffy in this way in this season? Anyway, one of the things I found notable was the Turk-Han. Like, I remember being terrified of that little cunt when I was younger. And like, he kind of just looks stupid.
We've seen scarier things since, I think is what's happened.
We've seen scarier things on Buffy.
Yeah, I think it requires a certain suspension of disbelief where you buy into what they're saying, that this is one of the first vampires and that Buffy is challenged by it. You know, she's scared. And I think what's interesting is I think they try to present it as a bit of a dark mirror for Buffy in terms of its fighting style, because as I say, it's not particularly bestial necessarily in how it fights. There's an element of the same kind of, you know, martial arts and you know, dancerly quality to it.
Well, I would say Buffy doesn't have a dancerly quality to her fighting. I would say she has quite a athletic, structured gymnastic, if anything.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
because like, you know, a lot of her movements are very solid, very strong, but like quick, whereas I think definitely there's a very dancerly almost like, you know, in JRPGs when the bad guy is like slightly beastly and it's like dancing back and forth, there's a little bit of that to the movement of the Uber Vamp, where he's quite low, like center of gravity, and like quite like, you know, there's a touch of creepiness to it, and maybe a little touch of the what you call that guy, from Bedknobs and Broomsticks?
No, she's never seen it.
Sorry, the other one then, Chitty Bang Bang,
which you've never seen. The Child Catcher.
A little bit of Child Catcher,
absolutely. Yeah. Apparently, a lovely man in real life and gay.
Oh, wonderful! I love the homosexuals. So, you know what? I made the funniest joke of my fucking life last week, and no one has mentioned it, and no one has complimented me on it. I think that's not fair.
What was the joke?
Well, you're saying that Timothée Chalamet has a face that like structured like a bike seat, and I said, yeah, but not one I want to sit on. And you didn't laugh. No one's mentioned it to me, and it was hilarious. It was fucking hilarious.
Okay. Ho ho ho. Ha ha ha.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, definitely I think the Turk-Han is a dark mirror of Buffy. And funny enough, it's kind of structured well in that way for the season, because at the moment you have Buffy, you're seeing Buffy as an individual and how she is, like, how she has to be the only person who's standing up against all this darkness and all this evil. In the same way the Turk-Han represents that same thing, where he is the evil in the world, with the focused evil attacking her, and she does defeat it, but there's plenty more where that came from.
Yeah.
In the Hellmouth.
Yeah.
And inversely, how we can counteract that is by Buffy distributing her power.
Yeah, I think we all know, it's well admitted, that some of the inconsistencies in the season are sacrifices to the overall plot, and like the fact that they can all fight the Turk-Han so easily in the Hellmouth, etc. But I think it still works thematically, because it's not really about making really precise numerical power rankings for them. It's that when it's just her, it's good versus evil, and it's her versus them, and when there's more of them, there's more to fight. You know, it's very much about that there isn't a quantifiable end to this struggle. It's a process.
Yeah. There's a lot of like weird like action visuals in this episode as well, which I found very interesting. Like just like consistent like when they all are getting set ready to like watch Buffy, do her fight. Like, I mean, there are a couple of like very awkward shifts, and there's like the visual style of the episode. There was like a slightly degraded quality to it versus previous episodes. Maybe the scanning of the film for whatever reason didn't go great for this DVD set. But there's lots of like quite interesting pannings, and like, you know, kind of there's scenes of the potentials running towards the camera, and the camera like shifting to like look down on them and stuff, and it's like, oh, there was like the director here was like being funny, or the director of photography was like, you know, trying to do a thing, which is interesting and cool, and definitely worth noting. But they're like, that really emphasized the fact that there was like an action thing happening, and I found it like thrilling in that way. When they like, I think it's an effective way to communicate that Buffy is as strong and resourceful and powerful as she is, even though she gets a bit like annoying.
Yeah,
in the style.
It's interesting because she obviously is still objectively quite young, but when you present her next to the inexperienced potentials, you actually do see the amount of experience she has developed over the last seven seasons. Yeah, like, even the way like Felicia Day is saying that, you know, oh, I saw a blurry picture of a vampire once. Yeah. And makes you think about how so many watchers are probably training their slayers in like very isolated or very like under resourced scenarios, you know? Yeah. Whereas now you could just be like, if you want to see what a vampire looks like, here's a YouTube video or something, I don't know.
Okay.
I'd say if the Slayer's in the modern day kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. Who's your favorite potential so far?
Who's my favorite potential so far? Yeah, probably Roga.
Me too.
I think she's the least
annoying.
But also
she's not annoying at all.
Least one dimensional. Do you know what I mean?
Although, you know what's funny is that she doesn't have a huge amount of lines. It's just the way she reacts. It feels like, well, for one thing, she feels like a POV character in the sense that she's being introduced as she doesn't have a watcher. She's no idea what's going on, and she's like, "What the fuck?" But she's also reacting like a human, which is nice. Unlike, Vi, who like looks like she looks like a clown for one thing, but also she's just like she acts like a clown as well. But
more like a circus performer, I think.
But we also have to note that Kennedy in this episode is further like absolutely throwing so much flirtatious energy at Willow. It's insane.
She's taking her bed.
Like, I mean,
also apparently she's really wealthy, so it's not something I knew about this character.
Yeah. So like it's just like, why that flirtation style is absolutely fucking bonkers. Imagine being like, well, I would like to sleep with you, so I'm just going to like camp here in your bed until you come to me.
It's like, why is she like a fresher?
Why have you done that?
No, I'm just saying it's like very like very teenager.
I think she's probably not college age, right? Hopefully she's at least 18. Like, Willow, come on. Anyway. But no, and she's interesting as a character. She's extremely confident, and she also is the quickest to believe Buffy, and she's very much like backs up Buffy in the conversations with the other potentials, which I appreciate. But yeah, she's really wealthy. She has multiple houses, and all her houses have wings to them, which is kind of cool. Maybe we should name some wings in our house.
Like, we have a wing, we just have one. It's the house.
No. A wing, you can't have a wing. You have to have, like, a wing has to be a part of the house.
I play Sims, it's fine. So yeah, I enjoy that dynamic. I do think that the fight between Buffy and the Turkong, and definitely the visual of her finally managing to, with her bare hands, decapitate it with some barbed wire, is pretty intense. Yeah. I can see the like standards and practices like this, such like incredibly short cuts to the footage, where it's like you can't really show any of what's happening here.
Yeah.
It all has to be implied. And in terms of other set pieces, everyone kind of has something to do in this episode. And we even have Giles and Anya off on their own adventure,
which was really nice.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think we kind of take that in many ways and put in the bag. I think in this episode that Giles is first kind of bait and switch. But
no, it's not put to bed at this point. As in, like, it's actually right. Do you know this? It's actually like raised.
Oh, they actually asked, do they? Okay.
Yeah, no. They're at some point they're like, oh my god, has anyone touched Giles? And they like rush him, rush him, and they give him hugs and stuff, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? This is like in a couple of episops, but no, it very much is. It's supposed to be. Okay, so the fact that they do that is actually, I think, probably inconsistent rather than
fair. But yeah, so we have this weird kind of exchange with her Demon X, and then they go into a black box set and visit Beljox's eye, which is a giant floating eye with a New York accent or something.
Yeah, and it's very Bloodborne.
Yes, there is. Yeah, they make contact with Bill Jox's eye, but they introduce a very key piece of lore, which is this mystical resurrection that happened in season 6. That introduced the instability in the Slayer line, which I buy. Yeah,
and allowed the first to
capitalize on it,
capitalize and come through.
Yeah, come through. I think that's plausible within the fiction of the show.
Yeah, and I also just really liked the dynamics between Anya and Giles. I think it's a great relationship, and I enjoy watching it, I must say. Apart from that, I think the two other big things. One is that Andrew in this episode is kind of like starting to like relax into the space. He's being untied and allowed to shower and stuff, and he's kind of committed to being kind of one of the crew. And I just like Andrew's presence, even though he's a shithead. And then the other thing is there's an interesting thing about the Mark Field notes that this episode is like episode 11's in like 3 or 4 seasons communicate Buffy's struggle for the season as a whole, while giving her incomplete or incorrect solutions. So in this season, that would be that what she does towards the end of the episode is she instead of incorporating everyone in her fight against this thing, she does it alone and shows that she has to have the power. She has to be the one who does this. And the lesson she needs to learn by the end of the season is that to be the chosen one, she has to let go of being the chosen one and like make everyone chosen, or more people chosen, which is interesting. But I think for our final proper point, the Spike stuff is actually quite good. Yeah. So Spike through this episode is being tortured by the first as Buffy and then the first as Eve, who he's never met. So okay.
That's purely for our benefit, I think.
100%, yeah. But it's quite like, you kind of feel for him. Like, it does feel tortury.
Yeah, he seems quite brutalized, and obviously we have that bit at the end where Buffy finally... Because the whole reason why she's trying to kill the Turok is
to get Spike.
It's to get Spike, and it presents quite like a significant threat in that respect. Like, even the fact that it gets into the house without an invitation, can't be held back by a magical barrier, all that kind of stuff.
They highlight it in the episode, but it's also like makes a lot of sense. Willow drops the magical barrier intentionally. I do believe that, but I still think there's an element of like threat to it, and like definitely breaking the invitation rule I think is quite that's interesting, scary. So when she finally reaches Spike, he once again thinks that he's being psychologically tortured, and then she touches him and he realizes that she's actually real and she came for him, and he's quite like emotional about it, and I was like, yeah, that hits. A couple of like great notes about that is that like and Mark Fields notes that this reflects the episode Intervention in season 5, where Buffy comes to find Spike after he's had the ship. I can't remember what was the context, but he had the ship eaten out of him for dawn. And she comes to find him, and he's just like, he's in pieces, and she just gives him a kiss, and it's really nice. And this is when I think she's pretending to be the Buffy bot at that point. No, that's actually a different one. Okay. Yeah. I think I'll check now in a second, but in this instance where she at that point left him there, and just in that episode after he's been brutalized, she left him in his crypt. At this point, it's been decided that Spike can return to the fold and can come home with Buffy. Mark Field notes that that phrase I'd like to excise from my vocabulary. Mark Field notes. Anyway. Instead, she brings him home, and one of the reasons that Buffy is so effective is that she doesn't just defeat evil, she redeems it, which is very very interesting and sweet. So should we move into the dusting, Joel? Please. Great. So some Buffy bits for you. Buffy uses the phrase "here ends the lesson." I knew you were going to say that. Which previously the Master used in "Never Kill a Boy in the First Date," and Spike used in "Fools for Love," which is or "Fool for Love." I can't remember if that's capitalized or not. And we noted that Giles touches Anya after visiting the eye, which is pretty funny. I also noted that this episode is another very short time period episode. Like it's definitely not spanning days. It's spanning at most kind of like 24, 36 hours, which is kind of interesting. And actually I don't have a huge amount of notes. Do you have any notes for us, Joe? Would you say that I enjoyed not notes Dawn's interaction with Andrew and the whole thing about her saying that like Buffy said that if you talk too much I can kill you.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting environment for her to develop because she has so many more people to interact with who don't see her as a child necessarily. Yeah, so I think that's useful.
She's also the only one carrying a weapon when they get to the I think, as far as I could see, when they get to the place where they fight the Uber Vamp.
The Christmas tree market, I'm pretty certain. Oh, sorry, no, that's the building site for the new public library. Yeah.
So she's the only one carrying a weapon. She has an axe, and I was like, appropriate. She's much more capable than all of these potentials, even though she does get outstripped by them. Yeah. But also, I thought that she could have been included in the plan.
Yeah, the incredibly convoluted plan in which they psychically talk to each other as opposed to just stepping into the other room,
which I found I think there might have been a directorial mistake there, because they step into the other room and they have a conversation. I think they shot too much footage, because there's a point where they just stop talking and they continue to just stand there in silence,
and then
for way too long, and then just the next scene
suddenly there's a gap in the conversation. They stand and stand and stand, and then Xander psychically shouts, "I've got just the place in mind," but he hadn't contributed psychically yet. It was weird. It's like this isn't a mechanism that they have.
Yeah, exactly. Though I'm like, if they could do this more often, I don't know, it was just kind of silly. It was good though. Okay. Do you have any other Buffy bits? Okay. So some fashion notes for you. I have a note here that says Torg looks awful. Who the fuck is Torg?
Torg is the ex-demon boyfriend, or the demon ex-boyfriend.
Okay, yeah. He does look awful. He has this really weird growth in his face. It was kind of cool though, and balding into his hair is being stretched into 3 different ponytails. It's bizarre.
He broke part of his pauldrons off from his skin and threw it to open a portal. It's inexplicable. Yeah.
Bizarre. I continue to love Giles' corduroy jacket, to be honest. I liked Anya's red jacket. It's quite nice, and I thought Xander's haircut, while it's a bit longer at the moment, is it's not bad, certainly.
I will say that Xander on the whole is mellowing out in this season, I think.
Yeah, he has a nice blue jumper in this episode, or dark blue jumper, and I thought it was quite nice. I hated Felicia Day's outfit more than anything. It was fucking awful.
This is reminding you of that period.
It just, it was a clown hat, a clown beanie hat, and a stripy t-shirt over a long sleeve t-shirt.
A clown before.
Over a long sleeve t-shirt, and I love a t-shirt over a long sleeve t-shirt. That was the entirety of what I wore 2002 through 2006. Which I know it's not very fashionable or cool or whatever. I think it was comfy and nice, but this is awful, and I don't think she should have been allowed to do it. I absolutely loved Rona's dungarees. I thought they were great. Yeah, really cool, very stylish. She could walk out tomorrow and she would be a bit of a fashion model.
That would be a big fit on TikTok.
Sure would. And I liked Anya's post-sex hair after they escaped the portal. It was pretty cool.
Jaws also had blown out hair, but it was less pronounced.
Yeah. I actually have a couple of Buffy Bit-ish notes, but just two, one of which is at the beginning of the episode when Rona's running away from the Bringers, and Buffy just grabs 2 Bringers and just fucks them away.
Yeets them straight into the sky.
It was incredible. And also they suggest that maybe what could defeat the Torg and Han is germs, and I was like, oh, is that a War of the World reference?
Usually.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have any fashion notes?
Yeah, so at one point in the episode, Dawn was dressed like Velma. Which I enjoyed. Classic look. And also I want to say Chloe, who is the potential whose name we didn't remember, has just a really tatty graphic tee with a rat on it or something.
I think it was a deer.
A deer, whatever, some kind of animal. Yeah. Which I did not enjoy. And yet increasingly Buffy is just starting to dress more and more in this kind of biker militaristic kind of thing, which is kind of interesting, and also quite sad was the fact that when they found Eve, she just seemed much, I don't know, smaller, younger, dressed in much more laundry day kind of stuff, where I think the first as she playing up with that level of demonic confidence. I think it was an interesting counterpoint, because you see this is very much we never see her alive, but she was very much a young girl.
It is sad. Okay, do you have Death Count first, Joe?
Yeah, so a bevy of harbingers.
Yeah, there's no point in counting how many harbingers die.
And yet, 2 killed by Buffy with a dagger, 1 snapped by Buffy, 1 killed by Xander with an axe, 1 shot by Kennedy with a crossbow, another stabbed by Buffy, Eve killed by the harbingers of death, and then 1 Turok vampire beheaded, and quite dramatically dusted by Buffy, with razor wire.
Very cool. Okay.
And we've hand waved, it seems, the fact the Harbingers, even though they just look like humans, have kind of gone off the deep end a bit, are apparently demonic enough that we can just kill them with impunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Do you want to should we do a rating?
Sure, why not?
Okay. What's your rating, Joel?
I will give this episode 8.0 residual neck puncture wounds.
Okay, great. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think again, judging by the standard of this season and where we're at with it now, I enjoyed a number of things about this episode. I liked that it was kind of more focused in terms of, okay, the potentials are coming, we have to kill the Turok Khan, there's a plot, there's a specific goal. I like the development of the potentials' personalities, and I definitely like the sense of unsurmountable threat from the vampire, and then her being like, "No, I'm the Slayer. I'm gonna decapitate with some razor wire." Like that was a nice fist pump moment, I think. Yeah.
No, I agree with all that. I'm gonna give it 7.8 unprompted telepathic conversations out of 10. I agree with all that. Like, I think the fist pumpy moments and the military stuff hasn't like started to fatigue us yet, which is nice. The potentials are all reasonably unannoying at this point, though a little bit annoying still. And I think we are starting to lose Buffy a little bit in the fray, which is unfortunate, but overall pretty good. And I thought, like, the action stuff was good, and I definitely I thoroughly enjoyed myself watching the episode. Should we move on to the Cordelia Chase? So I was just thinking before we started recording, I was like, I have no memory of what this episode is. Oh, it's the Angel episode.
Yeah, you do. The Angelus one.
Yeah,
they're all Angel episodes.
True.
This is Soulless over on Angel.
What do you think the meaning is behind that title?
Don't know.
Okay.
Some nerd shit, probably.
Yeah.
No, so
it's probably a Magic the Gathering reference.
Sorry, do you want to explain it?
No.
So in this episode, basically, we're dealing with the whole wrong of Angelus being released, Angel's soul being removed, and we have a fairly focused bodily episode, which is the interrogation. And I think it works pretty well overall. I think for a lot of reasons. One is it's a great set piece, and if you write it well, which I think they write pretty reasonably well in this episode, it does give you an opportunity to examine characters' motivations, put them in different situations, etc. Dave Boreanaz continues to do a great Angelus.
Yeah.
Who hasn't really been with us since Becoming. And you get to see and he thought
is like 5 years ago at this point,
yeah.
like, in the world.
Yeah, and he was always doing stuff on Buffy. Like, this is one of the few times you really get to sit him down and get him to be sinister. And it shows that, like, yeah, he's, even though they know that it's what he does and what he's intending to do, he does fairly effectively manipulate people. And the different ways that, you got the much more considered way that Wesley deals with him, to the absolutely, like, fucking stupid way that Fred and Gunn deal with him, like, basically just walking like lambs to the slaughter. They
were basically walk up to, like, Angelus and say, "Sorry, Angelus, do you think we have a good relationship?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Wait, Angelus said we don't have a good relationship, so I'm actually gonna go and fuck Wesley over here."
Yeah, basically that's exactly what happens.
They both say that.
Quote from the episode. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, important to note, other Buffy, because we like it when Buffy alumni come out. I think it's a very good thing. And Cal Penn came out.
Oh, so he did?
Yeah, and he was in Beer Bad. Or maybe another episode of early season 4, but I think he was in Beer Bad as one of the bros.
Well, he was definitely in Angel.
Was he?
It was 90% certain.
He was the head
Cal
guy.
Penn, who was the guy with the exposed brain who was psychically manipulating someone.
Yeah. But he also, I think, is most well known for Harold and Kumar, which I never really watched. Apparently he was in Designated Survivor, which I didn't really watch much of.
And in the Obama administration.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. Well, he was in, we said this when we were talking about him a couple of seasons ago, but he was in House. He was like, when they got rid of the original 3, like, doctors who were helping House in after season 3, I think, they do like a big, like, I want to say auditioning process, and one of them is, what's her name, the bisexual 13, but I can't remember what her real name is now. Anyway, and Greek is one of them as well. No, sorry, Greek isn't. Anyway, they get 3 people anyway, and he's one of them. But just at some point during the show, he kills himself with no warning or no, like, you know, nothing written through the show to indicate he might. And they're kind of like the plot is like, it can just happen, you know. Like, I mean, some people, it'll be going on for them, they won't have communicated anything about it, and they might seem like fluffy, easygoing people, and yet blah, and which is, you know, true, but also it's bad writing. But he just left to go work for the BAM administration. It's
poor writing, and this is an entire aside. Of course, there are situations which are unexpected, and sudden issues can occur, and people maybe not see it coming. But I do think the trope in fiction of, look how well adjusted and happy he seems, and then suddenly he kills himself, it's actually kind of, it can be quite damaging, because if people are having issues, you often can anticipate and help and give them support, you know,
especially as the narrative can tell. As in, like, you know, if you're a writer, you know if this is happening to the person and you can communicate it anyway.
But I think it transmits a certain amount of, like, sometimes I just think sometimes in the world when people say, oh well, we never could have helped, or no, it's like, well, maybe you could have, you know, about some things, and maybe we shouldn't just be like, anyway, hand waving and all that stuff so easily anyway.
But he came out and he's engaged to his like
partner of 10 years.
His partner of 10 years, or like 11 years, I think, specifically. But I just love it when queer people come out.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
Anyway.
Speaking of queer people, back to Angelus. But yeah, I think David Boreanaz does a great job. I think he is sufficiently menacing. I think that he does sow pretty good discord within the group. And I think that there's a bit of hand wavy where we actually see what he knows about the Beast in the past, and how the Beast wanted his help dealing with some priestesses. I'm always so unclear about, like, was the Beast extant in the world in some way as a threat, and then Jasmine just recruited him, or what the hell is going on there? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they kind of end up basically with nowhere at the end of it. And the weak point again with the Jasmine storyline is that you have Cordelia interacting with Angelus a lot and offering herself to him if he helps, and you know, being, you know, really confident in dealing with him and all that. But it doesn't read as either Cordelia Chase or Jasmine in engaging with him,
and she slaughters a group of like family. She
does. She kills all the priestesses, who are the only way potentially of removing the Beast and banishing him. But it neither reads as our Corgi is strong and can do this, because she's acting so out of character. Yeah. But also, if it is just a higher being, it's not impressive for her to be standing up to Angelus. So it's just really muggy writing, I think. But otherwise, I would say, again, in the situation you're saying, I'll probably give this a 8 failed feminist gestures, because I've been given kind of 6s and 7s for the most recent ones. I thought this was much more focused, and I think showcasing the stronger actors on the show is good. And we have a cliffhanger at the end, which essentially you're like, okay, shove his soul back into him, and they're like, oh no,
it's gone,
Kevin McAllister, oh no soul, etc.
Oh no, our soul, it's missing. And I would probably give it 7 failed feminist gestures, because I do think this is a strong episode, and I think the Angela stuff great, and I think there's plenty of Amy Acker doing a great job, and Charisma Carpenter. But I kind of hate the direction everything's going, and I'm just so fed up of this storyline already by this point, and I'm kind of like, this has to go on for another like 4 episodes of just this specific nonsense. Anyway, but I did enjoy Angelus being back for sure. Cool.
Folks, thanks for joining us for this week. What are we watching next week, Brian? What's
in Buffy?
Next episode, yeah.
Oh god, I can't remember.
Remember we used to do that?
Next week is an episode which is definitely going to be called A Thing. I actually quite like the title of the next episode of Buffy season 7, which I have definitely noted already.
Episode 12, of course, as we know.
Episode 12, and I actually often find that episode 12 often shows in Buffy episodes the interesting. It's actually called Potential.
Yeah, we really see the potential in the next episode, as you were about to say. So join us next week for Potential. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. Tell your friends. Tell the floating eyeballs in a desponding void in your life, and we will see you next time right here on Buffy Boys.
Buffy Boys.
See ya.
Bye. That's boys, Buoys. Just FYI.